Hey, Vincent, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's great to be
Yeah,
here.
it is so fun. We've gotten to spend a few minutes catching up, and I don't even know how long it's been since we've chatted, but we kind of keep up with each other on Facebook, right? So it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. The last time I think I physically saw you was at the Hiltebeitel wedding.
I think that's right, which was 11 years ago, maybe.
Correct.
Yeah. And
And I
now
still use you as a good example from that experience. So
it's so funny. You told me before we started that I'm in one of your training slides, and I was like, oh, I feel so famous now. This is great. Actually, Michael, the groom from that wedding, is here local now in Orlando, which has been
he
really fun to
is.
catch up with
Yeah,
him.
I've actually been able to work with him.
It just kind of goes to show, right, that relationships are so important. You don't really know where you're going to run into someone, but it's going to come back. So just keeping great relationships in our industry. It's such a small industry.
It is a very small industry when you get into it.
So, Vincent, will you kind of just tell our listeners a little bit about you, kind of in your own words? Tell us your story. Like, how did you get to where you are today?
So I started my hospitality career really as a young kid, sans college. Let's move forward all the way through to one of my greatest accomplishments was becoming the director of catering operations at a super huge resort and winning accolades, winning some Hall of Fame awards from the industry for that. All of that stuff makes it worthwhile and fun. And, when you reach the top, as we know, in that particular environment, sometimes it gets pretty lonely and you have to reach into that pool of unknown every day and reinvent yourself and teach yourself something new. In that career, I always marveled at people that took the chance to go out on their own. And I thought that's exactly what I'm going to do. Didn't really know how or where. I read every book, developed the business plan, the proverbial business plan, and budgeted and prepared myself. One of the things now moving forward that I teach is about, knowing who your customers are, pointedly knowing who they are so that you are targeting your efforts to reaching them. And I hired a firm to help me determine that. And it was a 360-degree review of the business plan that I thought I was going to excel at and received rave reviews. The firm that helped me do that said, we normally don't receive ratings this high, so we think you're good to go. Like, go for it.
That's awesome.
So I did. Kicked off. There I went. And there I sat. With crickets playing in the background.
Is there, that is like, I don't know that I can even explain that feeling. For me, I've had the same experience and I feel like it took me some time to really get past it. So what were you thinking?
I will tell you, I honestly spent 3 complete days watching the mailbox.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going to come in it. I wasn't expecting anything. I just thought that's where news comes from, is the mailbox.
Magic will happen right there.
Right there.
Yeah.
And so I realized, very quickly that I had spent a ton of years and a ton of time building a network. I was a member of professional organizations and associations, and I spent a lot of time learning all kinds of different industries and meeting new people. That's where I really started out, saying, where is my network now? Now that I need it, where is it? And ultimately made a couple calls. One was extremely fruitful, and I was able to be introduced to a world of opportunity via conversation and getting to know each other. It became mutually beneficial very quickly. From that point forward, here we are celebrating some success.
So crazy. You just packed a whole long time into like 2 minutes. So I'm going to make you break that down a little bit. So where did you go to college? Did you go to school for hospitality?
I did go to school for hospitality in Michigan. For the most part, at this point, I would tell people that get an accounting degree, because in the end, that's probably, the rest is common sense.
Isn't that so funny? I've never heard anybody say that, but literally as you were saying it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is what I'm going to start teaching people. Like in hospitality, we taste wine, right? We like learn how to convert Celsius and Fahrenheit. Like you can figure those things out on Google. Okay. But the accounting degree is the piece that you don't get enough of in the hospitality.
100%.
Oh my gosh. I'm totally doing that.
And ironically, if you do just a little bit of research, I don't know the exact figure, but I'm going to tell you probably 7 out of 10 times the CEO came from the CFO's office.
You know what? That's so true too. You're blowing my mind right now, Vincent. This is so true. I'm thinking
Yeah.
how I wish that accounting was a much stronger suit for me. I've really had to learn it, and we have a great accountant, love them. But I wish that it was the way my brain thought a little bit more. So that would be really helpful.
I will also say that I think accounting is the death of creativity because it is in rows and columns, and a
Yes.
creative person doesn't generally think that way. It's something that we kind of push to the side and do when we have to.
One of the things that was the most shocking to me when we first started in business was when our accountant at the end of the year, the first time she said to us, I need you to spend some money. I need it off your books. And we both kind of looked at each other like, where is this money that you want us to spend? And she was like, you're showing too high of a profit. And I'm like, but then where are those dollars? Like, where are they? And she's like, and that always just baffled me how like your books can show that you have all this surplus of income, yet there isn't any actual dollars in the checking account. So I've always thought that was very interesting.
It's as you learn and grow, right?
Yes.
You do need a
Yes.
mentor in that area too,
Yes.
that, kind of helps you understand. I, in the food service business, cat food can be part of extermination. Who would have thought?
Look at that. Look at
Right?
that.
That's your tip for the day in accounting.
Done. Done. I've got that one written down. That's the title
Right?
of this episode. So you got a hospitality degree, which now we realize should have been an accounting degree. And then what? What did you do out of college?
I literally started with, I did my internship through the Marriott Corporation.
Okay.
I had an opportunity to work for them in Marco Island, Florida, and downtown Chicago. Two completely different experiences, from the leisure traveler to that hardcore business traveler.
True.
But both very rewarding. And then move forward, I went to work for the Cisco Food Service Corporation
Okay.
as a marketing associate, and then ultimately as a national account representative. That was pretty short. It was fun. It was
Okay.
during the rise of the Boston Market
Okay.
restaurant chain.
Yep.
So busy, opening a lot of stores. And ultimately then ended up moving to Nashville, Tennessee to work on the General Jackson Showboat. Friend came. I came to visit. It was a beautiful March week, no humidity. Temperature was 70. I went home, made the decision to return in May. It was 100 and 200% humidity. And now I'm working on a, paddle wheel showboat that's
Right.
outdoor with a
Oh,
full-on tuxedo.
I don't think that I knew that you started on the showboat.
Back in the day, right, that was considered gold level service. So
Okay.
extreme training. I'll never forget having to use, two tablespoons to pick up a bus tub of knives off a stainless steel table in a time frame. Like, you had to be that proficient with French style service that you had to pick up knives, dinner knives, off a stainless steel table and put them back in the bus tub within a certain amount of time.
That's some serious training right there.
The ultimate lesson, I got a good skill out of it, but it's mind over matter.
Okay, so this is actually just a good lesson, like you said, in mind over matter. Like, nobody focuses anymore on a single task, right? We're always doing a million things at one time. So if you really want to be able to do this, you've got to focus on what you're doing, know you can do it, and keep practicing. So you learned a lot from that.
I did. And subsequently, later in life, decided to take up a more healthy lifestyle. And the trainer that I was working with said, your mind is going to tell you to quit long before your body really needs to.
Yeah.
And she would say, let me know when you're wanting to quit. And I would say, and then she would time from that point on to see how long I could control that thought process. And that's what it was about. Again, mind over matter. You don't need to quit. You just want to quit. It's an uncomfortable situation.
Right.
Kind of the same approach with our businesses. At some point you're like, I'm going to fax out my resume tomorrow and go back to work.
Yes. That's such a good point, because for anybody listening that's new in business, or even, we're in the middle of COVID right now. It's August that we're recording this, August of 2020. So yeah, there's sometimes where you're like, forget this. I'm throwing in the towel. Like, I thought this was going to be great, but it's not. So many businesses fail. Like, the statistics are well against small business owners really being able to consistently show up, consistently keep coming back when it's not working, because one day, if you keep your nose to the grindstone, it's going to work, just like with the knives, right? Like, all of a sudden you're going to figure out where to put the effort, and all of a sudden everything's going to change, right?
Correct.
That's such a good tip that I love for people listening, because it can be defeating in the beginning. Just like, I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. I just keep doing the same thing. I really like that analogy with the spoons and the knives.
I always say, to people, be that person. It's almost like you have to revert, and you're a mom, so please
Yeah.
fill me in. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 when they ask why
Oh my
mom,
gosh.
why,
Yes.
and you just want to give up. In business, you have to be that person. Why is
Yeah.
this happening? And I teach, if you ask why 5 times, you're going to get to the root evil of what the real
Yes.
problem is. Why am I experiencing this? Why am I feeling this? And then you answer why to that question and why to
Yep.
that question. And in the end, a lot of times, right, it's that laser focus that rule out everything that's going to divert you from success.
Yeah, I think that that's so true. This spring, I was part of a mastermind with Dean Graziosi, and he did an exercise called 7 Levels Deep. And it was exactly what you just talked about. Like if you keep asking why, and so you answer that question, then you say, but why? And you keep asking that, at the root, you're going to figure out, wait a second, you may have started your business for a reason you don't even realize. And that will be the driving force behind you being successful. And I think that you're exactly right. In the flip side, when something's either going really well or not going so well, like keep driving down and figuring out, what are we doing that's affecting this, whether it's good or bad. Like we've had some really great sales months recently, and I keep asking my team, why? Like, is it a fluke? Like what's happening? Why? I want to figure that out, because you can't budget on, well, we had some great months. You you gotta know whether that's going to keep going.
Sure.
Yeah.
And your business, as overseeing that, in a director of catering role, it was amazing to me. It was a natural instinct for me to man that telephone line on January 1st and 2nd, February 15th and 16th, December 26th. All of those proposals happen over holidays. They're so excited, and you have to be there when the client is ready to buy. Otherwise, guess what? They're going right down the list.
Somebody's going to be ready. Okay. So you were on the showboat, and then you went where?
Same company, went into the hotel. I was there for a lot of years. I worked in the
Yeah.
banquet department. I worked in the beverage department. I worked in restaurant reservations for parties. So kind of the restaurant dining concept. I then took a little leave of absence and went down and was the director of operations at the arena here in town. So I got that mass experience as well, luxury and concessions as well.
Okay.
I was asked to be on the 2002 Winter Olympics food service team, oversaw food service at 6 venues, plus athlete dining and Olympic family dining. I was done with that and got rerouted back to Omaha, Nebraska, where I was part of the build, construction, and opening team for what was then the Quest Center Omaha, which was a convention center and arena attached. Wrapped up there, and ironically, the job I ended up with was available back here in Nashville, Tennessee, where I still owned my home. I interviewed. I was a whole new set of people that I fell in love with all over again.
Yeah.
And moved back and picked right up where I left off.
That's so awesome. I love that. And you've worked for one of the big hotel brands, which is amazing. And I think it's really cool that you tell that story of how you worked on the showboat, and then you worked in reservations, and you worked in food. There's so much opportunity, right? And you left what was your title when you left?
I was the director of catering operations.
And you were responsible for how much of a budget?
It's about $100 million. I was with the company before it grew and had more hotels. So I was able to kind of be a part of onboarding that process and sharing a little bit of the culture.
Vincent was with the Gaylord brand. You guys hear me talk about that all the time, that I kind of grew up in the Gaylord brand, and I got to be part of the first hotel planted after Nashville. We worked together on a wedding. You really have so much opportunity in hotels, but especially in that brand gave us all so much opportunity to grow and be part of their growth, which was great.
There are so many positions that whether you needed to know them or wanted to know them to be successful at the job you ultimately wanted to get to, or you just wanted to understand another piece of the pie. But in the end, we often fought this battle of, banquets and catering brings in the money, right? It's big money because we had big space and did big events. I would go back and I would teach an orientation, and I would say to people, you are not just a restaurant server. We we are entertaining our customers
Mm-hmm.
in your restaurant with your service prior to them ever being a banquet customer. Like
I
you
love
really
that.
are the start of the sale process.
Yeah.
And, likewise at the front desk, you're not just a front desk agent. You could be checking in the decision maker
Yeah.
for, a several $1 million program that they're considering bringing to the hotels. No one's job is more important than the other.
That's 100%. I learned, actually, probably the biggest thing I learned growing up in the Gaylord family was that everyone has to be the star of the show. So when we go on site for weddings now, when we see the banquet setup or the housekeepers or the captains or the bartenders, I'm always like, what do you need to do your job amazingly? Because I have to have you be flawless, because you are just as important as I am on this day. I mean, maybe the person they see, I need all of you to be amazing. And so what do you need to be amazing at your job? And so I think it's really important to let people know that they're empowered to do their job to the best of their ability to serve the guests in the way that they've been designed to do so. Like everyone has a role in the show. Yeah. Okay. So Vincent, tell me a little bit about, you left Gaylord around 2015, right? And so,
January.
oh my gosh, that's so crazy. So, and you were like, I'm ready. Like I have this network. You were well known in the community. And so you left, and what was your goal? You started an event planning company?
That was the ultimate goal.
Okay.
And I always love to teach. And to this day, as you know, with Gaylord, they not only sent you to class, but they sent you to be certified to teach the class. So you could come back, bring it to all 3 or 5, depending on which hotel you're in, 3 or 5,000 other stars. And so I always loved to teach. Leading up to that, I had also been ghostwriting some engagement for some industry and non-industry people who, needed to keep some relevance out in the electronic world, but didn't necessarily have the time or desire to sit down and write it. So I literally said events, education, and engagement were kind of the 3 rules of what my business was going to be.
Okay.
And I really always knew that events was going to probably carry it from a breadwinner perspective.
Sure.
And education is just what I love to do, right? That might just be my play arena.
That's
and
right.
then engagement was, something that I felt I was naturally good at.
So you left and you thought, okay, well, so I'm going to start this thing. And is that when you hired the marketing company that you had kind of mentioned earlier?
It is. So hired a marketing company to perform or conduct a 360-degree view. And they took my business plan and broke it down into questions, seeking feedback, good and bad, about traits that I possess, and would it be successful out in the business world? Is it a saleable, or can I make this a monetary opportunity for people to pay me to do? They received overwhelming positive comments. I was shocked. I mean, there was feedback as well, but for the most part, they said, as a percentage, we normally see this, and here's where you're at. Like, we say, go for it. And I was super excited.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're like on top of the world. You're like, I got this. Like, I'm going to kill it. People are going to just be throwing their dollars at me.
You know how it is. Like, that's how it works.
That's exactly. I totally know. I totally do. So you launched this event planning company, or, education and engagement events. And then you just watched it not come in, right? The clients weren't knocking on the door.
It was literally crickets. I went back to old school sales techniques where I'm going to call, 10 new, 10 existing, 10 potential. I started all the old things that I thought I would do. I would use, business development. I was fishing for absolutely anything to bite and got nothing.
Nothing. I hear you say that. And just because I've been there, it feels soul crushing. To me, it was really challenging. And it also reminds me of when I left Gaylord, and I felt like I really had such a strong network. Like I had really built such a strong network there, not just here locally, but all over the place. And so I left exact same scenario. Like I thought, I got this. Like I know everyone, I'll just walk into their offices and be like, I'm starting a wedding planning company. Don't you want to hire me? And it was not like that. I did have fairly quick success, but it was not through my network at all. And I remember being almost a little bit shocked, like, why aren't they calling me back? And you're just in a different arena now. You're trying to sell something different, and it's not that they don't like you. It's just that they're busy, and they have other things going on. And I just remember being really surprised by that.
You
It
know,
was
I look back at it and I understand now from their point of view
sure.
where there's existing relationships
Yeah.
that you're now want to become part of, right? So you're
Yes.
kind of this outside force that's tapping at an existing relationship.
Yeah.
And there may be nothing wrong with that relationship. One of the things I teach is if you make a sales contact, you better continue to make that sales contact until either you die or they die, because otherwise you were just a one-shot wonder, exactly what they thought you were going to be.
That's so
So
true.
I'll back it up. I'll start out pretty consistent, and then I'll
Yeah.
go quarterly, and maybe it's birthday, or then eventually just get to the holiday greeting. But
Yeah.
at some point, somebody is going to have a failure or a falling out or
Yeah.
something that relationship is going to crack, and somebody's going to say, you know what? He has never ever given up on me at being a customer of his.
Yep.
I'm going to give him a chance. So,
I love that. You know what? And in our industry, in the wedding industry, a lot of times we'll say, well, our clients are just one-time clients. And hopefully that's true. But they do refer you to their, I know, right? We're all like, wait a second, hang on. Yes. Hopefully they're one-time clients in the wedding industry. They do refer you to a lot of, their friends, but really that message that you just said exactly is to really be there, be consistent, be showing up, is with our vendor partners.
mhm.
Vendor partners will refer you over and over and over again. And I know from our experience, one of the reasons that we've been so successful in the last 5 years really has been because we've become almost 100% referral from other vendors. And those are just so much easier to close, so really fostering those relationships. And if they're not ready yet to refer you, keep showing them why they will be, and I think that that's a great lesson.
I always say you can spend every dollar you ever dreamed of on marketing yourself,
Yep.
but it's not the value of word of mouth referral is
It,
so much. It's quicker, it's
mhm.
easier. If somebody feels that you're already part of a team,
Yeah.
your vendors are referring each other, that's what they want. They don't want to
Yes.
have to wait for that team to be built and put it together. So
Yeah. I
vendors
100%
are
agree.
crucial.
They're gold. I know. They're like little gold nuggets in your pocket. Um, so Vincent, what changed? You said that you had a connection and you used your network, right?
I've been in an association for a lot of years, and I tell people that it's too late to start networking when you need
Yeah.
your network. And
Yep.
I literally, after I told you 3 days of looking at the mailbox, like something was going to miraculously show up in that mailbox. I hadn't even sent anything to be sent back.
Yeah.
So the the
There's
the
nothing.
concept of why I did that was futile. But I finally said, okay, network, it's time to work for me. I've
Yeah.
supported, I've been a vendor, I've been, all of these things. And so I started reaching out to people that were really either had been or were in the same shoes to say, is there anything you're doing differently?
Yeah.
You know, and I was that person. I was asking why 5 times. I
Hmm.
was, I wanted to be that child that understood what was happening.
You had to be the
And
new kid again, right?
yeah.
Yeah. That's scary.
So I reached out to actually, which was a former client as
Okay.
well, and had gone out, had been right sized out of her company, and had gone out just as an independent contractor. And I said, "Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm looking to do. Here's my
Yeah.
business plan. Like, not really that much different than anybody else's that's written to go into this style
Right.
of business." And ironically, with a heart of gold, she said, I took one step out. I was going to take a year off. I was out a day. I've been busy full time ever since, and I know there's much more work
Yeah.
than I could even do myself. So she made some introductions, very quick introductions, and you have to interview, right? You have to do the work for the job,
Sure. Yeah.
prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be new, right? I couldn't necessarily be the lead, but I was willing to be second or a
Heck
supporting
yeah.
actor
Yeah.
for a while. And within months, I had filled the better part of 2 years with an amazing book
Gosh.
of business. Ironically, I was kind of now found myself in the same position she was. One
Yeah.
company, way more business than they knew what to do with. You were now a contractor, able to help them out,
Right.
do
And
what you love.
all of that came from you not being afraid to say, I need help, right? And to use your network. And I think that's really hard for established business owners. You had this powerful network to have to say, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but something's not working. And can you help me? But that's why we build a network, right? That's the whole purpose of having these people that you know and you like and you trust and you build relationships, is so that you can help them, they can help you, right? And I mean that's what this industry is all about,
100%. Vulnerability is a really tough
Yes.
spot.
Yes.
And, emotion, embarrassment is an emotion. And so no one wants to feel embarrassed by
Yeah.
having to show some vulnerability and ask
Yeah.
for that. But the liberation when you do it
Yeah.
is exceptional, because like you, people remember when they were in that situation, when
Yes.
they were, no one forgets it. And it's kind of what makes your foundation block
Yep.
who you are. And I'm not a proponent of saying the tougher it is, the better you're going to be. I don't wish
No.
toughness for anybody, but it's there.
I mean,
Uh,
everyone has had a version of it. No one starts their business, gets flooded with cash, and then becomes a millionaire and retires. I mean, that's just not anyone's story.
correct.
So we've
Yep.
all been there. And I think
Yeah.
I've always had the experience that people really enjoy sharing their story, and they really enjoy saying, let me help you figure out what speed bumps I hit so that you might not hit them as well. So all you have to do is ask.
When you're in need, right,
Yeah.
a network is great. 99% of what you're going to do or garner from your
Mm-hmm.
networking isn't the people you directly know, it's a contact. So again, back
So
to that
true.
referral. At this point, they say, even for jobs,
Yeah.
it's not who you know, it's who they know.
Gosh,
So
that's a
when you
great
look
tip.
at LinkedIn, look at
Yes.
the people that are listed as second, right? Like, I'm
Ah,
connected to you. Who are our second contacts? That's who's
yeah.
really going to help me get a job if I was out looking for one. Because I know you, and if you knew I needed a job, you would
Right.
tell me, here's a great opportunity, and I think you should take it. But
Yeah.
it's that second person that doesn't necessarily know me, but would
Yes.
be comfortable discussing me with you, that's going to say, well, this is kind of what we've been looking for. Would you mind
Yeah.
connecting us? Okay.
I love that tip. It's not who you know, because we say that all the time. It's who you know, but it's who they know. Right. I,
Correct.
I love that. So I just wrote that down because I was like, ooh, I really, really like this. And LinkedIn is an untapped social platform, and it has such power.
Let's go back to accounting.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that a lot of people that are in accounting are not necessarily highly extroverted people, right? It's
Right.
it's kind of a
They're
sole
not.
person job. I mean, you're part of a bigger team, but most of the work you do is on your own. And so therefore, like, we are daunted by accounting, they are
Mhm.
daunted by throwing an event. So
Yes.
now kids' birthday parties, bar and bat mitzvahs, and all
Mhm.
of those things that highly successful professional people do,
Yeah.
they need us. Take your network outside of your existing industry. Even my network for creativity, to keep my creativity going, is the
Uh-huh.
fashion world.
Hmm.
I love, and not only textile fashion, clothes, but also
Uh-huh.
home fashion. The people that you meet there are just as
Mhm.
fascinated by you and what you're looking to accomplish with their product, and they can give you the story behind it.
Right. But there is a
So
story. There's always a story. I love knowing the stories. It's like my favorite thing. That kind of segues into, I wanted to talk a little bit about knowing your worth. Like that's one of the things that you teach, right? Is to kind of know your value, know what you're worth.
I will tell you that, if you are going into business, you
Okay.
either need to be solving a pretty prevalent problem that
Okay.
people need your help to solve, or you need to be providing a good or a service that isn't available in your market. So knowing your worth, I often will say to people, and in fun, but also in a bit of jest, that
Yeah.
nobody works for free. No, they
Yeah.
don't go to work for free. We don't necessarily go to work for free. Knowing your worth is really about knowing your specific features, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having developed the adjectives that are going to sell your
Mm-hmm.
features for you. And ultimately, by knowing your customer, you can talk about how it's going to benefit them. So I call it the FAB process: features,
Okay.
adjectives, and benefits. But it's about knowing who your audience is and what it is they're looking to accomplish and how you can do it for them.
Features, adjectives, and benefits. I love hearing you say the adjectives and the benefits here, because it's like you want to tell them what it is, obviously. But when you're selling to this new client, this new generation, it's how will it benefit me? How will it make my life better? And I think Apple does such an amazing job of that, right? It's like you're not buying a computer, you're buying an experience.
100%.
And that's what we want to sell. Like I tell my planners all the time, you're not selling them you being there on the event day. You're selling them a stress-free planning journey. You're selling them these memories. They get to make memories on their wedding day because they're not going to be thinking about all the details. They're thinking about all the amazing family they're with. And so it's really about selling an experience. But you have to know your client, like you said.
That is imperative. Whether they came to you and you have to do the research to figure out who they are and what
Yeah.
interests them and all those kinds of things. But you also need to then understand how it is that they process information and learn, and what the global outcome really is. I did a class for the Small Business Administration. It was for their counselors, which are generally retired business folks. And there was a guy, he was absolutely not ever going to believe that the millennial generation had a value and they were going to amount to much, as he was sitting, not necessarily paying attention, on his smartphone.
Oh dear.
Right. So I did every training technique I ever learned. I stood close. I called him out specifically. I engaged him during a break. All of those things to kind of wrap him into the conversation. And in the end, I delivered that statement: despite when you were born, if it's a generation that's been identified, you're part of it. And he almost came up out of the chair. There is absolutely no way. Don't put me in that category. I said, then you know what? I need you to put your smartphone down.
That's right.
Go back to your rotary phone that's on your desk. You can clock in at 8, out at 10 for your 15-minute break. Lunch is at noon, 3 o'clock break, and you can go home at 5 o'clock. And he got this huge grin on his face, and he said, that too, Brute. I said, so here we are.
I mean, it's so true, right? Each generation adds to who we are and makes things a little bit different. And I love that you said, to really get to know your client, because one of the things that we ask before we ever tell a client a single thing about what we do is, what do you want out of a planning experience? Like, why are you even considering hiring a planner? Because the answers are always so different. Sometimes it can be like, well, my venue's making me. And then, so okay, let's just talk about exactly the details that we're going to be able to provide, right? Or it could be, I have people coming in from all over, and I just keep thinking, like, I don't want to be so stressed all weekend. I want to be able to enjoy all my family because I don't see them very often. You can really speak to the benefits based on what their answers are. So always asking questions, because the benefits are going to be different for everybody.
Sure.
It's not always the same.
Even at general, you and I are talking about the event industry, but even if you had a product to sell, who are you looking to sell that product to? And it needs to narrow right on down, because as we all know, if you are in this world, you can target now through social media targeting and Google and all. I mean, you can target directly to those people. And if you're going to expend the energy, get it in the hands of the people that are going to want it.
Gosh, that's so true. I love marketing. It's not probably the thing that I would talk about the most often, but I do feel like just being able to figure out how people think about your product and how to make them see your product in the way that it can change their life.
Now, for you to leave an indelible impression in somebody's mind, they just changed from 13 impressions to 17 impressions. You have to get your brand or your message in front of somebody now 17 times before they literally could walk out and talk about it to somebody else on the street.
That is 17 times makes me tired, but it's so true. You should be putting it on every social media platform, in your story, on your reels, in an email, send a letter.
Instagram Live, right?
All the things. I was telling my team this morning, just keep repeating yourself. If we want to say we have a new product, you have to keep repeating yourself. And I had somebody say to me a couple weeks ago, oh my gosh, I've been following you forever and I love everything you're doing. And she asked me a question. I said, oh my gosh, I had a podcast about this recently. And she said, you have a podcast? But that's the thing. You have to just keep saying it.
I had a friend the other day, I literally said, where did you get that? She said, at this point, Facebook's just sending me stuff.
There you go.
That was her way of saying when the ad pops up, she just hits buy. Bye.
That's so funny. Because they know what you want.
If you put something out there that gets an overwhelming response, you can go right back to that and target those same people. If they were interested in that, they're probably just as interested in the next big idea that you have. You just build on the audience, and before you know it, your exposure is, you can't pay for it.
Now people really are throwing money at you, right?
That's when it starts.
That's how it starts. That's right. Oh my gosh. Well, Vincent, this has been so awesome. Tell our listeners where they can find you online.
So I have a website. It's dreffsforsuccess.com. It's pretty much informational. Like you, I prefer to switch over and let's have a conversation, talk about what it is you're trying to achieve, determine whether it can fit, and again, whether I fit into your equation. And I still to this day say the old Gaylord adages is we'd rather not have a customer than have an unhappy one. So I'm the first one to say, if I'm not going to meet the mark, then I'm going to help you find somebody who is. I just want to be the first call. Dreffsforsuccess.com. All my contact information is on there.
Great. I love it. Well, Vincent, thank you so much. I am so excited for our listeners, you guys, to go visit you online. And thank you so much for all these nuggets. It was awesome.
You're welcome. I appreciate it. It's so great to catch up.
We'll talk soon.
Okay.